Welcome into On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and CJ Vogel. Guys, it's time for the breakdown. We're going to talk about this weekend's game with the Buckeyes. Texas going to Columbus. It should be a big one. Number 1 versus number 3 in the country. Longhorns take their number 1 ranking on the road. First time in school history, the Longhorns have been ranked number 1. Rod and CJ, let's start off with Texas versus Ohio State. Let's start with Texas on offense versus the Ohio State defense. CJ, I'm going to start with you. What do you see as Texas's advantage, strengths, weaknesses up against that Ohio State defense?
Yeah, it's the Arch Manning show. That's exactly it. We've touted it all offseason long. I know the pundits nationally have been looking forward to Arch Manning stepping foot in this game. That's going to be the biggest point of emphasis for Texas. How high can Arch bring this football team, especially on the road in his first career start? But it's more than that, right? I think Texas, without question, has the quarterback advantage in this game. Both are relatively young and experienced across the board. Arch at least has seen some snaps in meaningful games already. Julian saying does not. On top of that, we also hear defense travels. Rod, you'll get into the defense here in a bit. But look, offensive lines travel. And whether it's a good offensive line or it's a bad offensive line, that's going to be what shows up the most when Texas goes on the road to Ohio State as well. So look, I'm really eager to see what that unit looks like, not just the health of a Trevor Gooseby, but what does it look like cohesively? Are there pre-snap penalties? Is there that cohesive push in the middle in which we're expecting perhaps a little bit more than what we saw a year ago with that older trio up the middle? That's going to be really important. If you can get a run game early in this football game, that's going to take a lot of weight off of the shoulders of Arch Manning, and it will certainly help open things up down the field as well with those longer extending play action passes.
I've got a couple questions here for you, CJ, but first I want to ask Rod, your overall thoughts on the offense in this game.
I love what CJ said at the end there. I think he hit the nail on the head. Can Texas run the ball? Do they have the ability to have a consistent run game? Because if they do, I think the playbook's going to be wide open for Sark. But if they can't run the ball, and we saw that was the case last year versus Ohio State, that was the case versus Georgia last year versus Arizona State last year, it really limits what they're going to do, going to be able to do in this game. And they're going to end up in a lot of third and longs, unfortunately, second and longs, unfortunately. And that's going to put you in a predictable passing situation. And then that means that they can pin their ears back and get after Arch Manning, and they can throw exotic, very elaborate coverages at him potentially too, moving around a guy like Caleb down. So I think CJ hit the nail on the head there. They got to be able to run the football. Can they run it? Can they run it consistently? I think the legs of Arch Manning, although not going to be weaponized necessarily, will be able to help open up some more run lanes as well. And hopefully the health of the running back room, something Texas didn't really have the luxury of early last year. They have a healthier running back room that I think should help them have some more versatility in the run game.
I got to ask y'all this. Both of you guys mentioned the running game opening up the other aspects of the offense. Texas only went like 21 for 62 yards rushing against Ohio State in January. Now, Ohio State's defense graduated and put into the NFL, 7 guys? Is that right? That's how deep they were across that. Is that, that's got to be you mentioned it as a emphasis or a point that they have to get across, but how successful does that have to be? Is it 25 for 80 or is it 25 for 100? What do they got to do theoretically on the ground, or just do they have to be successful in spurts to sustain drive? What is it exactly constitutes being able to run the ball in this one?
I look back to that Michigan game a year ago. Look, Texas in the grand, box score probably wasn't the prettiest, right? I think they were right around 3.7, 3.8 yards per carry in that game. That's not going to wow you. But in spurts, you look at that second quarter when Trey Wisner, implemented himself into that game plan and really took over back-to-back drives, allowed Texas to go down the field and take some pressure off of Quinn Ewers in that pass rush, right? It's got to be moments like that. Maybe bust one that's longer than 10 yards, something Texas didn't do against Arizona State at all in that game in Atlanta a year ago. You just have to have different ways to take the weight off of Arch Manning. He's going to have plenty on his plate. All the eyes are going to be there as well. And with a younger wide receiving group as well, if you're able to then just say, hey, CJ Baxter, Trey Wisner, go get me 5. Let me set up a second and third and short so we stay ahead of the chains. Again, the legs of Arch Manning will pick up yards elsewhere. I have no doubts about that. But it's got to be C.J. Baxter and Trey Wisner in that running game that allow Texas to sustain drives and stay ahead of the chains, so Ohio State can't do exactly what you just talked about, Rod. Exotics and a lot of pressure with a young offensive line on the road.
All right, before we get going and flip the sides to defense, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, brand new sponsor for us this year. This episode of On Texas Football brought to you by Bingham's Bourbon, created by Grammy and Oscar-winning artist Ryan Bingham. For years, Ryan turned down offers to just put his name on a bottle. He instead wanted a bourbon he could be proud of, one that stayed true to his Texas roots and where the music really comes from. That's why he built Bingham's from the ground up, a Texas-certified whiskey made with 100% Texas-grown grains, distilled and aged in the searing Texas climate for a bold, unmistakable flavor. From the hands of local Texas farmers to the barrel to the glass, every drop is a tribute to the land, the craft, and the people who shape it. Bingham's Bourbon, proof that Texas makes a damn good bourbon. Available now across Texas. Find details at Bingham Spirits. All right, let's take a look now, guys, to the other side of the ball. Defense, the Texas defense against a vaunted Ohio State offense. And it's not even that they have a brand new quarterback, CJ and Rod. It's that they have these receivers that go on for days.
Yeah.
And, we talked to someone over the weekend that is in love with their offensive line, said it might be their best in 15 years. Rod, what is the Texas defense? How do they set up in this game against that Ohio State offense?
I mean, just looking at, the basic game plan from last season, and it was just a lot of too high shell and a lot of too deep coverages for Texas. Even a lot of that inverted Tampa look that they would throw out there as well. I went back and looked at it, and they were nearly 60% too high shell coverages and pre-snap looks to deter, I think, Will Howard from even thinking about throwing it deep. He did throw, I think, 2 passes, 20 yards or more down the field. And I believe actually maybe one of those shots was definitely a Jeremiah Smith, and it may have been both of them. But Texas wanted to initially, from the pre-snap, deter any shots downfield, and they wanted to keep an umbrella, a cap over the defense. And they did really well on Jeremiah Smith. So they didn't bracket him as much, but there was always a safety over the top, which I think allowed the corners to play a little bit more aggressively on some of those underneath routes. So the number one question will be, because I think they'll do that again. This is the number one wide receiving room in the country, guys, with the best wide receiver, best player arguably on offense in the country. You want to win that numbers advantage. So you want to have numbers in the passing game, probably 2 deep safeties. Problem with that is you're going to end up with a balance even basically a light box. Basically, you have fewer defenders than they have blockers in the box. If that's the case, they're going to test Texas in the running game. Now, no problem last year when you have, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and Bill Norton playing really well. And year before that, it's Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. You're at the best run defense in the country, arguably, with a light box. Not necessarily the case, where at least it hasn't been proven this season. They're going to test that with C.J. Donaldson, a big physical back. The interior of that offensive line you were just talking about, Bobby, that's where all the experience is, right? They got Luke Montgomery, Carson Hintzman, Shabola also in that interior offensive line. They're going to match that up, what they believe the strength of their O-line, up against what they believe might be the weakest part of the Texas defense, or at least the most unproven part of that Texas defense, which is the interior of the D-line. So can Texas stop the run of the light box? That's something we'll find out. I think another thing to also consider is if you are Ohio State, if Texas has 2 deep safeties, where are you going to throw the football? Where are the openings? And I think you'll find that last year with Will Howard, they worked a short to intermediate area. That's where most of his passing yards were. I think they'll try to work that area again right behind those linebackers. So linebackers dropping in depth, dropping to the correct depth is going to be big in this game too, to try to alleviate some of those intermediate routes that Ohio State's going to try to exploit.
CJ, you have any comment on Rod there?
Yeah, there are 2 things. One, anybody but Jeremiah Smith can beat you. Texas had that exact approach a year ago. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to bracket him every single play, but anybody else but him, whether it's a Quincy Porter, whether it's a Cardinal Tate, that's great. They're talented, no dispute, but they're not Jeremiah Smith. They're not the best football player in the country. The same approach as the Cotton Bowl, it worked out beautifully for the Longhorns against an offense that, quite frankly, was playing its best football in the college football playoff leading up to that matchup. The other thing is, look, Rod, you mentioned those guys on the interior. I'm looking at Austin Saraveld, who moved from guard out to tackle this year. Ohio State likes him quite a bit, but I think there's a difference and facing what he saw on the interior at times a year ago versus that of going against Colin Simmons for probably 40 snaps or so this upcoming weekend. That's the matchup within the matchup that I'm looking at. If they can keep Colin Simmons away from Julian Sand, hey, credit to Ohio State, because they just withstood the test of one of the best front sevens in all college football as well. But I'm looking at Texas bringing a lot of pressure early, and making Julian Sand start to question, is he in the pocket at the right times? Is the ball getting out where it needs to be? And can he withstand the heat that Texas is going to ramp up? Because they're going to have a lot of it come Saturday morning.
Yeah, I got to ask y'all this. Y'all are both kind of stats heads a little bit. Y'all like the stats, the esoteric stats that maybe say something. Is there any in this game on defense that you're looking for? I mean, outside of the proverbial, get 2 turnovers or, 4 sacks. Is there any kind of bellwether stat that you can think of in this game?
That's good. For me, it'd probably be how often Texas can get them in 3rd and long situations. Because that means Julian Sand, I always call those kind of butt-naked drop backs. They no play action, no RPO, 3rd and long. Everybody in the stadium knows you're dropping back. And can Julian Sand, a young first-time starter, do that against arguably the best pass rush in the country? When Texas had teams in those situations, they usually throw in the NASCAR package. 41% of your sacks came in the NASCAR package last year. You only played it 16% of the time. That is, Julian Sand don't want to see that package. If he's looking at that package, that's bad news for Julian Sand.
So he needs to get ahead of the chains.
That's
his MO. Yep. Wait, CJ, you have anything to add?
I was going to have a very similar route. 3rd down, average distance to go. Stay ahead of the chains, make it favorable. Ohio State was 3 of 10 a year ago on 3rd down. Texas was 5 of 15. Not much better, not very successful, not very efficient for either side. Which team can do that is going to have the greater advantage without a question of a doubt for me.
Yeah, both of them had top 10 defenses last year, too. I mean, just really top shelf defenses. We'll see if that holds this year with new quarterbacks, but also a lot of new faces on defense as well for both teams. All right, let's go now to a special guest we have here, one and only Ryan Bingham. Ryan Bingham, the proprietor of Bingham's Bourbon and Yellowstone star, country music star. Congratulations on all your success, Ryan, man.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you for being a sponsor of On Texas Football this year with your Bingham's Bourbon. We'll let you talk a little bit about that, but man, it is football season, Ryan. Are you ready for it, buddy?
Man, it's on. Yeah, I am. I football was big in my house growing up. My granddad played, my dad played. I played when I was young growing up, and every weekend it was hanging out with the family and seeing us playing football. So I'm looking forward to it. I've been traveling around a lot over the years playing music, and now I got 3 kids, all kind of playing sports and all that. So it's been really fun getting back into watching games with them.
That's great. Hey, Ryan, I got to ask you, obviously Longhorn fans, I'm sure a lot of fans of yours are also Longhorn fans. The Longhorns have been really close the last couple of years, back-to-back trips to the semifinals. What do you think it could take for the Longhorns to get over the hump this year and finally get to the championship game?
Man, I was just looking at the schedule. It looks they're pretty stacked up. We got some big games this year. And this first one with the Buckeyes too. I mean, that's a heck of a banger to start off with, but they're a solid team, and it's in their first rodeo, so to speak. So I think if they just focus on keeping things simple and the basics, they've all been playing their whole lives. It's ingrained in them. They know what to do, and it's once the game starts, practice is over, and it's just getting out there and just doing what and playing. And I think if they get their minds right and just stay focused, they're going to be pretty tough to beat.
I got a question for you. You're a superstar. What's it like being in Arch? Well, you're humble. I know you're humble. What's it like being in like an Arch Manning shoes where all eyes are on you? I mean, you're the guy that has to be it. And what's it like for Arch Manning, you think, a little bit like that?
Man, it's funny you asked that. I was just thinking about that, really. I mean, it's with the Heisman stuff, all the expectations and all that kind of, pressure that, is kind of building up into this. It's kind of, you know, I used to ride bulls back in the day, and my uncle was kind of my coach in that too. And, you know, all the prep and practice and pressure, when you get to the big show, you know, and they load those bulls up in the gate. When that gate opens, like there ain't nobody going to help you ride that bull but you know, and when you just you focus on what you know, and that whole mind over matter thing, and just get out there and play and have fun, and try not to overthink it. I think that having that mindset, if you can take that into just about any situation, you know, you can overcome it. You know, just try not to, don't make it too complicated, you know, just stick to what you know. He's a talented guy. He knows how to play ball, and just get out there and rely on his instincts, and don't worry about all the noise, you know, and just let all that just be what it is, and go out there and have fun and play ball.
Yeah, it's great. Sark said on a media availability earlier this week, his discussion with Arch was just go be yourself, man. That's all you can do. Ryan, you have started Bingham's Bourbon. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're obviously true to Texas roots. Where are you from originally, and why did you decide to do bourbon?
Yeah, my family's all from West Texas and Eastern New Mexico. I'm up in that panhandle area around Lubbock, Amarillo, Hobbs, New Mexico. You know, my family ranched out there for years and then went into the oil field stuff. So we moved quite a bit growing up. I spent some time Midland and Odessa, went down to Houston for a little bit, went to Laredo, ended up graduating high school in Stephenville, Texas. Making my way to Austin once I learned how to play the guitar, and playing music around the hill country like Lukenbach and Floor's Country Store down in San Antonio, and, you know, just make that loop. And then from there, would just head east and west out of Texas and go try to sing for my supper. And always kind of had that home in Texas. You know, I'd get out there on the road and just get beat up, you know, heading out towards New York or Los Angeles. And you know, there was definitely some times I came dragging back into Texas with my tail between my legs, you know, having to heal up. And, you know, the Texas folks have always been such a great supportive community, and just always, you know, gave me a place to hang my hat no matter where I was or what I was doing. Over the years, when I started getting a little bit of success, as you know, things kind of happened with brands, and especially liquor brands were approaching me a lot, wanting me to endorse their products. And, you know, playing music, I spend, you know, the majority of my time in the nightlife, you know, where folks are hanging out in the bars and restaurants where they're serving alcohol. And so I just thought that if I wanted to get into the spirit stuff, I wanted to start my own business and make it my own thing, you know, a family type business that I could share and pass down. And had some good friends down in Houston, Texas, helped me get started. And I found a great distillery down there at Giant, and it was one of the largest distilleries west of the Mississippi, and great master distiller down there that I'm able to go down there and work with, and craft our flavor profile, and make something that not only I enjoy, but the band does, and my friends and family, and then take that out and share it with fans on the road. So that's kind of the short part of getting into it, you know.
Hey, Ryan, can I ask you just a quick question, just overall, just about the industry and your process creatively? You're a songwriter and obviously a great performer as well. Can I ask you how long it takes you to come up with a great song, writing it, and then, you know, the music, and put it together, perform like that? Is it for you? Takes days? We talking months? Like, what is this process for you?
You know, I feel like some of the best songs I've ever written, I've written down on a napkin in a restaurant or a bar in about 2 minutes, you know, but I say that, you know, it maybe took me 2 minutes to write it down, but it took me 20 years to live it, you know, of kind of getting out there on the road and having those experiences. And it's always been that way for me. I've never been one to be able to sit down with pen and paper and just craft a song out. You know, it always seems like I got to get out there and go on some adventures and have some experiences. And then one day I'll just be, you know, reflecting on life and be like, oh man, there, I got to write this down. You know, it's like kind of thinking, sometimes if you think of something funny, you know, and you're like, oh man, I got to write that down, you know, tell my wife when I get home or something, you know, it's like, it's kind of some stuff like that, you know, but it's, I do believe, you know, and like the 10,000 hours, I think you spend enough time out there doing just about anything, and it starts to become natural and ingrained in you. And, you know, now I just kind of wait and try to let them come to me as they come.
Good stuff, Ryan. Ryan, folks here are here to talk a little Longhorn football, a little Bingham's Bourbon. Longhorns have a big game this Saturday. We're here doing the breakdown today, and we appreciate you joining us. Give us your score prediction. We're going to start the score prediction. Next will be Rod and CJ after you see us off. But Ryan, you are going to be the first guest picker this year for Texas versus Ohio State. What you got, man?
Man, I think it's going to be close. I don't know. I think right out of the gate, like no matter how hard you practice, how many times you've done it, like I said, once you get to the big show in front of the crowd and all of that stuff, and it's the first game out of the box, I think there's going to be, you're still working out the kinks a little bit, you had, been off for a little bit. It's the first big game. I know with my band, when we get on the road, we could rehearse for weeks. And then that first show, there's always a train wreck in there somewhere. I don't know. Maybe Texas by a field goal.
There you go.
What do you think?
Hey, just 1 point. That's all we're asking for, Ryan. We're just
1 point.
Hey, you were talking about your tour dates. You've got some tour dates ahead of you, including, I believe, tomorrow, August 28th. What do you got coming up on the road in the state of Texas if you want to go hear your music?
Yeah, I'm heading down there with Robert O'Keen and the whole gang down there for the flood relief benefit and New Braunfels at the Whitewater Amphitheater. We're doing that, and then a few weeks later we're hitting the road. We're start out in California and San Luis Obispo, big rodeo on the beach, and then we go to Ann Arbor, Michigan at the Big House and playing with Zach Bryan out there. That's gonna be a wild show. And then we start our tour in October. I think we kick it off at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, and then start heading west and end up back into Texas. I know we got a couple of nights at Kane's Ballroom up there in Tulsa. We're making the rounds, man.
All right, we'll let people know when you're back in Texas after this Thursday.
Hey,
Ryan,
we're coming to Austin. We're ending it. I think our last show is in Austin, Texas, there at the Moody. So
nice.
We'll be coming to town.
You'll have a good time. Ryan, thank you so much, bud. And we appreciate you sponsoring On Texas Football, and good luck with Bingham's Bourbon. I'm going to be trying some here after we finish this show today. So
you bet. Watch out for that. Watch out for that 90 proof. It'll slap back a little bit.
Ryan, take care of yourself. Hook horns, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right, so Ryan has the Longhorns by a field goal. Rod's excited about that. CJ, our own picks now. It's time for them. What do you got for the Longhorns?
I've got Texas winning this game. I like 20 to 13 is my score. I think it's going to be very ugly. I think it's going to be very defensive centric. I think it's going to essentially be don't let your quarterbacks throw you out of this game. Punting in this game is going to be a very positive to flip the field and let your defenses work early in the season. Again, defenses are ahead of the offense. I'm expecting this to be a pretty ugly game if you're looking for points. 20 to 13, Longhorns come away because of the quarterback position.
I got to say this. If it's 2013 Texas, this is going to be a beautiful game. Rod, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I kind of agree with CJ. I think the teams are going to be filling each other out. I don't expect a shootout or anything like that, especially against this Texas defense. I'm going Texas 27, Ohio State 23. And Texas pulls it out in the fourth quarter. I mean, maybe it's a game-winning drive, or maybe it's a game feels like Alabama where they had just control of the fourth quarter. Remember that Alabama game at Alabama? Yep. It wasn't necessarily a game, but they basically controlled the game in the fourth quarter, and it felt like they could have went up even bigger. That's what it'll feel like in this game. They'll only win it like 27-23.
I feel like such a heel. I'm the only one that's going to pick Texas to lose in this game.
Nay.
But I will tell you something that I disagree with you guys a little bit on. I think there are going to be some points scored. And one of the reasons why is not only are there different quarterbacks in this game, but these two head coaches are offensive minded. I mean, they left that Cotton Bowl field on January 10th thinking, man, I should have done that more, or I could have done this more. Mm-hmm. And so I go 28-24 Buckeyes on this. That's my take on it. I just think they're going to score a little bit more. I mean, I know, and this is the other thing. Everybody in Vegas apparently is pushing the under down, because because everybody thinks it's going to be a low-scoring game. Perhaps so. I think I might going to go in the opposite direction just to be a different on this one. But I go 28-24. Hopefully I'm wrong. And Ryan Bingham, Rod Babers, and CJ Vogel are right. All right, you guys have anything y'all want to add before we let folks go on this first inaugural edition of The Breakdown, brought to you by Bingham's Bourbon?
Yeah, last thing for me is how quick of a leash does Ryan Day have with Brian Hartline calling plays? How often do you see his fingerprint on some of these key third downs or late in the ball game situations? Texas certainly with the advantage on the coordinators and that continuity in this aspect. We'll see.
Along those lines, there will be a question mark in the Texas secondary. We don't necessarily know exactly where it's going to be. Could be a nickel, could be at the corner spot opposite Malik Muhammad, depending on what they do with Gilbo. If you are Ohio State, I guarantee they're looking at it. They're going to be hunting whoever that is in that secondary with the best wide receiver room in the country. That's something to watch too early on. In the little chess match, because if I'm Ohio State, that's definitely somewhere you can gain a clear advantage.
All right. Thanks again to Rod Babers, to CJ Vogel, and to all of you for tuning in, as well as Ryan Bingham and the folks over at Bingham's Bourbon. This has been The Breakdown on Texas football. We'll be back with more later tonight. Amanda Atwell will be at the helm with CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe on the live stream. You guys have a good night. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.